There it is. That's the hardest thing we had to do tonight. And so I just, I want to uplift that it is really like an honor to be with you all tonight. I'm so excited for this fruitful conversation that I was sharing with Patrick and Judy. I already know will be such a success. It is a success just because this bridge that's been built. And I know that you all have such great synergy, although you've yet to meet in person, that I know that this conversation is just going to be so generous. Okay, so I'm not gonna do anything. There's no framework here. This is a casual, organic conversation, just getting to know a little bit about who you each are, why you do the things you do, what your practice of collecting is, methodology, philosophy, all of these types of things. But if you start Ciera talking about Beyonce concert coming up, that's also totally cool, whatever you'd like to chat about. Okay, so I'm going to turn my video off now and my audio, and I'll let you guys take it from here. You'll see my face pop up in exactly an hour.
Okay.
I'm going to set an alarm, and that's how you'll know it'll be time to wrap it. All right, cheers, you guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes, please take care. Oh no. Oh, you can turn it. Oh, nice. Well, thank you all for spending some time with us. It was really wonderful reading about your history and just the breadth of knowledge that you have on the artists that you collected and have experienced so much over your journey within the arts. So it's definitely an honor to be in conversation with you too.
Well, we're very happy to be a part of this. I've really enjoyed, getting to know Jessica over the years, and are absolutely flattered that she has invited us to be a part of the exhibition at our local museum. I think it opens in July, but she's done an awful lot of work in preparation for it. And again, we just about pinch ourselves every day with excitement about the project.
Yes, no, that's so amazing. Yeah, I did an exhibition, I think it was in 2021 at the Southside Community Arts Center, where Zakkiyyah actually works as well. And my whole crux of the exhibition was around Black collectors and trying to dispel myths about what a collector looks like, how much money you have to have, and what it means and looks like to just collect because you enjoy art. And really working with the Southside Community Arts Center's collection that they have alongside contemporary works from the collectors as well was a really nice way to have that conversation. And I sat down and interviewed all of the collectors about how they got started, why they collect, just to be able to have some anecdotal information to spread.
Sure.
So yeah, this is definitely in my lane of conversation.
Yeah, let me just share something quickly, and it may come up from time to time in this conversation. Judy and I actually lived in Chicago 2000 through 2007.
Oh, wow.
And I had the privilege of serving on the board at the Southside Community Arts Center. And as the both of you know, I mean, that is just a hotbed of extraordinary artists. Although we had collected for, maybe almost 25 or 30 years before we got to Chicago, Chicago was absolutely the most extraordinary arts experience that we had ever had. And a lot of that had to do with the Southside Community Arts Center and all of the outstanding artists that were, that had studios and galleries and homes throughout Chicago. I mean, it was just an amazing 7 years. And then you had Margaret Burroughs living right across the street.
Yeah, because she was alive at that time, right?
And she'd pop over from time to time. And I mean, it was just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable.
So you must have been there when Fahim, were you there when Fahim?
Yes. Fahim and his wife, I think, were the managers or directors at that time. It was an extraordinary, 7 years that we were there in Chicago, and the Southside Community Arts Center had an awful lot to do with that.
Wow. And what neighborhood were you all living when you were here in Chicago?
We lived in the West Loop, right on South Racine and Jackson, I think.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
But that's awesome that you already have a direct connection to Southside Community Arts Center.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason, probably many reasons that Jessica had for getting us all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check out your work there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I am the public programs and engagement person at the center.
Uh-huh.
And I think since then, the center has grown.
Mhm.
I would say, or sort of has expanded through funding. And we're fully staffed, and we just got, which you would be excited to know, we've been getting a bulk of our funding funneled into our archives and collections to kind of reboot and reestablish conservation efforts within the collection,
Sure.
and also digitizing and archiving everything up to code and up to standard, because there were a lot of things that were not being archived digitally, or certain things that weren't being preserved or conserved just due to a lack of resources and funding. And so we're also starting a Margaret Burroughs Institute, hopefully launch in the next couple of years, utilizing materials and archival documents and objects that were extracted from her home in 2017. Which is kind of crazy to think about, but there was an archivist team that went into her home in 2017, and they found a wealth, as you know, wealth of materials, documents, and photographs from her personal slide collection. Thousands and thousands of slides that are currently being archived and digitized at the moment.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and then on the topic of collecting, while you were on the board at the Southside Community Arts Center, did you collect from any of the contemporary Black artists that were coming through that space within the 7 years that you all were living here?
I think we did some collecting, although, you know, since getting back to Charlotte, I mean, we actually relocated from Charlotte to Chicago, and then we came back to Charlotte.
Oh, wow. It's too cold for you, so you had to turn around and go back.
But we are still kicking ourselves that we didn't do more collecting while we were in Chicago. I mean, again, we did some, you know, primarily as a result of the annual art auctions that the board planned and organized. And obviously, you know, artists throughout the city were very generous in offering original works for those events. So we purchased some work through, you know, those annual events. We were able to benefit from, I also served on a committee at the Art Institute, and I think it was 2005, we invited Elizabeth Catlett to be our honoree for an award that was created. And to our surprise, once she accepted our offer and agreed to come to Chicago for 5 days, she actually donated, I think, maybe 30 or 40 signed prints to the Southside Community Arts Center. And we you know, the staff displayed the images, and I forget exactly what the total process was, but you know, the actual evening of the sale, the works just flew off the wall. I think all 30 or more were sold within 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were able to take advantage of that. There were artists like Sylvester Britton that we collected, Marva Jolly,
Love Marva.
Margaret Burroughs. You know, I was invited to Kerry James Marshall's studio several times, And he's one that we're kicking ourselves that we didn't purchase his work.
Yeah, he's the one that got away.
He's the one that got away.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so
I think I have a question too about your experience being on the board at the Art Institute or serving on the committee at the Art Institute and being on the board at the Southside Community Art Center as well.
mhm.
And having that different dichotomy of like an higher institutional space that was maybe had some elitism with it during the time, because Southside Community Art Center was started by Black students from the School of the Art Institute because no institution or space would show their work. So it kind of was born out of a lack of resources or born out of necessity. So I would be curious what it was like for you to navigate those two spaces.
Yeah, we're back.
We never left. I was trying to,
Enlarge the screen.
no, actually, well, that too, but I was also trying to, your voice is soft, and so I
Oh,
was
yeah.
trying to turn it up a little bit.
Yeah,
So
I'll
I
try
think it's this one.
to project a
Yeah.
bit more too. So I was just asking about your experience navigating between being on a committee at the Art Institute and being on the board at the Southside Community Art Center, because they're two separate spaces that come with a different set of terms. The Art Institute being this higher institutional space that might come with a level of elitism versus the Southside Community Art Center that was born out of necessity because Black artists during that time weren't able to find places that would showcase their work. So I was just wondering how you navigated those two spaces, especially as a Black collector and arts worker.
Well, my involvement with the Art Institute, and again, combined with the privilege of serving on the board there at the Southside Community Arts Center. I mean, I think it was just a wonderful situation. I was actually on two committees at the Art Institute, one, the Print and Drawing Committee, and then also a Leadership Advisory Committee. And this was a committee made up primarily of African Americans who were charged with finding ways for the Art Institute to be more welcoming to the Black community in Chicago. So it was made up of, business leaders, some men of the cloth, and I think maybe a woman or two of the cloth, but primarily business executives. Denise Gardner, you probably know that name. She was on it. There's a Black woman who was the head of the cultural department at the city of Chicago, Joan Small. She was on that committee. Our dear lifelong friend, Richard Tolliver, a minister at St. Edmund's Episcopal Church on South Michigan Avenue. In fact, I think he's still on that committee. But again, the committee was made up of African Americans who, one, were very supportive of the Southside Community Arts Center, as well as, our focus on making the Art Institute a more welcoming, public space. I'm sort of tripping over myself, but I also want to say that the leadership at the Art Institute at the time were very interested in forming a partnership with the Southside Community Arts Center. And, I was involved with, ways in which that could work. And perhaps we won't share all of this with the Charlotte community, but at the time, say for example, and Zakkiyyah, I think you mentioned it earlier, back during the period we were there, the permanent collection was at risk. In that, we had a leaky roof, that we were very concerned that the water, the rain might go throughout the building and down into the basement and destroy some of the masterpieces that were housed down there. The Art Institute was, very willing to help out in any way that it could to assist in addressing that issue. And I forget the personalities right now, but the president of the organization, who at that time was Jim Kuno, was willing to do whatever the Institute could do to assist the Southside Community Arts Center. We were able, through some work at the Department of Housing, we were able to get a new roof for the center. And we were very, happy about that, in that resolved a major problem, for the building. And then, once we got that done, I think within a short period of time, Judy and I returned to Charlotte. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, work has been done to conserve, again, some of those masterpieces that Archibald Motley and others left for the center.
Right.
So again, it was, to make a long story short, there was good collaboration at that time between the Art Institute, the Leadership Advisory Committee, as well as the board members who served there at the Southside Community Arts Center. It was just a super exciting time. Say for example, when the Art Institute invited Elizabeth Catlett to spend the week with us and accept this award, we had an event, in addition to the art auction, we had an event where she came to and spent time at the Southside Community Arts Center, and it was standing room only. I mean, the sidewalks were filled, the front steps were filled. I mean, it was just one of the richest arts experiences I had ever had, given that Catlett had worked at the Southside Community Arts Center, earlier in her career. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful sort of time for both institutions to collaborate on certain activities.
And speaking of Catlett, I would love to hear more about how the both of you started your collecting journey, because I understand that you also have Catlett works in your collection.
Yes, but I'll let Judy talk about Ms. Catlett. Let me share that we met Elizabeth for the first time in Winston-Salem. And she had an exhibition at Winston-Salem State University at their Diggs Gallery. And after her talk, we waited in line to speak with her. And, she was one of the most welcoming and unpretentious superstars we'd ever met. And, we were able to establish a relationship with her at that time that continued almost up until she passed away. So I'll let Judy talk about Ms. Catlett.
Well, actually the relationship became Patrick and Miss Catlett. And it got to the point where she would call him Sonny. And she called our house one time, I'm not sure what for, but she said, "Is Sonny there?" And I said, "Oh, you mean Patrick?" And she said, "Yes." And so I was speaking with Mr. Driscoll at a dinner one evening, and David Driscoll. And I was telling him that story, and he said, "Judy, what happens is we get to a certain age and we don't remember any names." I'm pretty sure that's why she was calling him Sonny, but I assumed that it was just like a personal nickname because of the close relationship that the two of them had established. I think during that time that Patrick was talking about where she was visiting Chicago, I was actually living in Boston. I had taken a job at Tufts University, and I think I was gone for almost 3 years. And that Patrick just had a real field day during that time, because it was like, if he wasn't at work, he was somewhere doing art, something to do with art. And I know that, you know, what he said earlier about Chicago being one of the most stimulating arts environments is certainly true. But when I left town and it was just him, I think he just lived art, you know, between the various boards that he served on, and, you know, doing an event that we came up with at the house, which was an auction. And Patrick would probably be better describing it, since that actually was his original idea about the art auction that we did for the students at the School of the Art Institute. And that's how we had maybe intentions of buying art. But like I said, we had artists whose work just got away from us because either somebody else got it or it was just more money than we could afford. So we really relate to people saying, you know, art is something that we can't really afford. And it's something that we talk about a lot to budding collectors or would-be collectors, which is, no, you don't really have to have a lot of money to start collecting art. And, you know, here's what we did, and here's some ideas that you might use for getting your art collection started.
Yeah.
Just a quick ad regarding Ms. Catlett. One of the you know, truly extraordinary components of our collecting over our 50-year marriage has been that we have gotten to know, and in some cases we've built personal relationships with a lot of the artists that we've collected. And again, including Ms. Catlett, and that includes Benny Andrews, oh boy, Duhire Rusmesha, who graduated from the School of the Art Institute, Dr. Michael Harris, who actually was a part of Afro-Cobra and recently passed away in Atlanta. But most of the artists, and I can't think of them all off the top of my head right now, but one of the beauties for us has been, again, getting to know the artists, maybe going to an exhibition opening, you know, having the opportunity to meet them, and then over time cultivating a relationship. And then in many instances, you know, they extended invitations for us to visit with them in their homes and or studios. Again, for us, it's been like a magic carpet ride. I mean, we couldn't have anticipated, we couldn't have expected any of this, because initially, you know, we just wanted to outfit our apartment with, you know, with African-American art. You know, we wanted our son to grow up around African-American art. I mean, you know, we never did an awful lot of entertaining and having friends in to view the art. You know, we just loved, you know, living with the works, getting to know these wonderful people, and just over time, Judy and I both got sort of compulsive, and we, you know, again, in Chicago had a lot to do with this. I mean, there were just so many opportunities to acquire work, and in many cases, the artists were, you know, willing to work with us on acquisitions. So, you know, we don't have a huge collection, but you know, we're unable to hang all of the work in our home because it's just it's too much of it.
And a small home.
In a small home.
Yeah, I think we can definitely relate. I mean, we both are artists and curators, are in a tight-knit artistic community in Chicago. I mean, I came here from Milwaukee about 10 years ago and was only supposed to stay in Chicago for 1 year. And I was going to go to New York or go to LA. and ended up really falling in love with the creative artistic community here. And 10 years
Sure.
later,
Mhm.
I'm still here. So I had to say her to meet her, of course, too. But we collect together, we collect separately, and I feel like our relationships with artists are very important
Sure,
to
absolutely.
the aspect of collection as well. We collect from our friends, or if I do or curate an exhibition, I always try to acquire a piece from that show, or I've been
Sure.
gifted
Mhm.
pieces before. And I think that mentorship and kind of that relationship building has always been at the crux of my work in general. So
Mhm.
I really take an intentional approach to those conversations around acquiring work as well. And yeah.
And I think similarly with us, like, we just love living with art. Like I mostly, a lot of my interests lie in Black photography across
Okay,
the
sure.
diaspora. So
Sure.
I love like photographic representations of Black identity, or things that might reference Black identity that might tend to be more conceptual.
Sure.
And
Mhm.
we do have varying tastes.
Yeah.
But I think it's also getting at a point in like within our apartment, in our small apartment, where we kind of want more wall space because we want more art. Because we've just become very, very passionate about, again, as an artist myself, just like I'm also passionate about supporting other artists.
Sure.
And
Mhm.
also living with the work of my contemporaries, because I really do believe in supporting their work and I want to see them thrive. But I also think there's something really special about being able to live with work that people are making in the time that we're also living in, especially
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
think also in this moment when a lot of Black artists are sort of getting more opportunities for collecting and getting more opportunities for having their work seen. And we do like to entertain. And it's actually encouraged some of our friends, you know, when they come to our home, we know a lot of people who have never really thought about collecting, or they think that it's not accessible to them. And they come to our home and they're always surprised and shocked to see how much art we have. Because again, I think some of the practices that we've maintained, I think are just, again, supporting friends, but also letting people know, like, you can go on a payment plan if there's a work of art that you want to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
forming relationships with galleries that we trust and like the way that they treat their artists. There's certain spaces that we have more access to than others. It's dependent upon what level in the art world they are in Chicago. But we love working with the same people and being able to not only build relationships with the artists, but also with gallerists and curators as well too. And I had a gallery for, I want to say 2 years, and the space supports emerging artists particularly. So what I was collecting within that space was very different from the work that I'm showcasing in my home. So I'm thinking of trying to meld together these two disparate identities together. So building a collection for an institution for myself that I hope to have someday with the artists that I've worked with, and then work that I actually want to live with her in her home. So it's very different. And I would be curious to know how you all have kind of approached that. Because I think I read that you collect things based upon 5 different themes across the board. And if it doesn't fit within that parameter, then you try not to acquire it.
Well, actually, there are, 4 or 5 themes that run through the collection, and we're drawn to works, say musical, jazz and musical images. The Black woman is prominent in our collection. Family gatherings are make up a part of our collection.
Religious.
Religious images. And certainly Southern themes are also prominent. But we also, we have collected abstract images, Richard Hunt, and again, Sylvester Britton is a we have a wonderful small watercolor that he did, and again, he's one of the master artists that we were able to collect there in Chicago.
I love Sylvester Britton. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Pardon?
that's one of her favorite artists.
Yes, I love him. The whole exhibition that I was telling you about at the center that I curated on collectors was based around a piece by Sylvester Britton, because I really wanted to find a way to showcase that work because I was obsessed with it. So I built an entire exhibition around it.
Wow.
And I ended up meeting his nephew, I want to say. I was doing another show at another space, and the nephew was installing the vinyl wording for the exhibition that I was curating. And I didn't know that he was a nephew at the time, but I was raving about this artist that I discovered named Sylvester Britton, and I was trying to tell him to go check out this show. It's like, that's my uncle. You mean Uncle BB?
Oh boy.
It was such a small world like that. We
Right.
were able to connect in that way. And he was able to bring his family to the center to see the work. And I was telling him I wanted to get a tattoo of Sylvester's work. So it was this whole kind of really nice full circle moment. But I love Sylvester Britton. He's
Yeah,
definitely
And there's some
love his
amazing
work.
prints that he still has at the center
yeah.
that I want. So hopefully I can acquire those
Yeah.
when they go on sale.
Patrick may have known something about his work before I discovered it at one of those annual auctions. But, this is how I've always been about art. It's like, it has to really grab me, it has to grab my attention. I go, I have to have that, that's how I was about this one image that we have of Sylvester Britton's. And it was just so colorful and so beautifully done. I couldn't resist it. Patrick kind of looked at it like, okay.
I liked it. I love it. I love it.
Okay.
One of his abstract.
And that's how it used to be when we first started collecting. We would kind of get together on everything. Like, you like this, honey? And and he'd say, oh, I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure, and we'd really kind of like agree on everything, or we wouldn't get it. That's changed over time. But fortunately, we basically have a lot of the same tastes. We like the same, as Patrick said, the 5 themes that I'm not sure that we really thought, hey, let's get some religious themes, let's get some music. It's just that those are the ones that we happen to like. And most of the time, we agree on what it is that we like. But Patrick has veered off the path every now and again and just gotten something that he couldn't live without. And it really helped him a lot when I was living in another city. I come home and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Where did that come from?
One of our questions too, like, how do you navigate collecting work together? Because when we moved in together, we had similar tastes and we also had different tastes as well, and trying to marry those together. But also there's times when she's liked something and I'm like, yeah, like it's okay, or vice versa. So I'm curious about how you all navigate that.
We've even gotten into like disagreements at home about certain pieces, like what to keep up, what to change, what to
How
not
it's
keep.
framed.
To a certain extent, I would answer the question by saying that during the height of our collecting, and we're on the tail end now, again, we've actually collected for better than 50 years.
Wow.
In fact, the first week that we were married, we started collecting at that time. And again, we don't have adequate, wall space to display our work, and we're always really happy when museums ask that we consider an exhibition. I mean, we've over time, and again, this was a huge surprise to us as well. Over the last 20 or 25 years, there've been maybe 20 or so museums around the country that have asked us to loan either individual works or multiple works to exhibitions. In fact, we currently have maybe 30 or so pieces that are on display at the Columbia Art Museum in Columbia, South Carolina. That's about maybe an hour and a half south of where we are here in Charlotte. And it's actually, where I was born. So I'm, just really pleased that the museum, the staff came up, spent a couple hours with us and requested these works. And again, we're just as happy as we can be that that this exhibition, it went up in October and it comes down in April. So what am I trying to say? Say in the 80s and early 90s, late 90s, we couldn't help but be impressed with Romare Bearden, Elizabeth Catlett, Huey Lee Smith, Benny Andrews, Jonathan Green. I mean, a long list. I mean, Carrie, again, we should have had included Carrie James Marshall in that. But Richard Hunt. So those were the 20th century artists that we were drawn to and collected. Although we're very excited about all of the dynamic things that are going on in the art world today, almost across the country, again, we're at the sort of tail end. So we don't do an awful lot of collecting at all now because we don't have the space to place works anymore. In fact, we have some stored here at the house. We have the exhibition down in Columbia. We're getting prepared for Jessica's exhibition. So there's really we just don't have any room. We encourage, young collectors to support our local artists. We're involved with, local arts organizations that, that call on us periodically to, participate in forums, again, where we can share some of our background, but the key to it is, encouraging young collectors to support our local artists to the extent that they can. So what would you add to that, Ms. Diamond?
I don't know if there's anything else to add.
Yeah, we're also curious, since you have such a robust collection, about preservation. I think we talked about that in terms of the center and like what it's like to be able to have the resources to be able to do that. But how do you all, maintain the collection and preserve it over time so that it stays in good shape?
Well, we are not experts or really good at that. I mean, it's a great question. What we learned, in Chicago, and what we, maybe some of the advice that we took to Chicago was, was to, buy quality work from, good and outstanding artists, and not to be afraid of investing in the best framing that you could afford. So, I guess, we have always felt it was important to have museum quality framing for all of our work, right? And that's pretty much the extent to which we, preserve and or care for the work. Again, we're because we don't have adequate storage here at the house. We're always happy when, and it's, a museum wants to come in and take 20 or 30 pieces and display them for a month or two or three,
Yeah.
so that we don't have to worry about them, right? But again, framing and some just the basic sort of things, keeping works out of direct sunlight. We would never hang anything in an area where, there would be, it would be subjected to, moisture or, that sort of thing. And beyond that, we just keep our fingers crossed that nothing bad ever happens, that we don't have a fire here at the house or anything like that.
Yeah, because I think we talked to some folks as well about ensuring your work or having an archive of it, because I'm curious of how institutions even find you or like approach you to showcase work. Like if there's the artist lets them know, or if in the case that the artist is passed, having letters or certificates of authentication to be able to work with museums and institutions. I'm just curious about that process.
Well, in our case, some of the requests that we've received are generated maybe through, and as a result of some of the organizations that we've gotten involved with. Again, I've had the privilege of serving on a number of arts boards and or committees, and through the association with those organizations, requests have come through those relationships. We had, say for example, we had the extraordinary experience of being asked by the National Gallery in DC to participate in a Romare Bearden exhibition back in 2003.
Oh, wow.
And we're still, flabbergasted that we were asked to be a part of that. In 2003, Bearden was the very first African-American who had a one-person show in the 62-year history of the National Gallery. And our image was one of only 130 that were included in the exhibition. And the curator for the exhibition traveled throughout the country and examined more than 1,200 of Bearden's pieces. So for them to, ask us to loan our collage to the museum, and then that exhibition traveled to 4 or 5 other museums around the country. I mean, again, as I said earlier, this has been an absolutely unbelievable magic carpet ride, all because of these extraordinary artists.
Yeah.
It wasn't us. It was, this important work. Judy and I had the opportunity to spend time with Bearden here in Charlotte.
I was thinking about talking about that because it's almost like one thing leads to another. And I think our son was probably just really young, too young to stay by himself. And I came home from work one night, turned the television on, was watching the local news, and they said, oh, if you get a chance, stop by the so-and-so gallery because Mr. and Mrs. Bearden will be there. And let me tell you who they are, right? And I was like, oh my God, I've got to go. Because, we were maybe a 15-minute drive from uptown Charlotte. So I got my shower, got ready to go. And Patrick came through the door. I was like, I'm out, I'm going. And so it was they were just such warm people. Just meeting them for the very first time in a room with, I don't know, 60 or 70 people, they treated me, and I'm guessing everybody else in the room, like relatives. So when I got home, I said, Patrick, there's an exhibit uptown. We have to go tomorrow and see it. And so I worked, kind of a long distance from there, but I was like, we're doing this. We're going to do this tomorrow. So we had decided we were going to have lunch, and we were also going to stop in the gallery to see the works. And so we're standing in front of the restaurant, and I say to him, what do you think? Should we have lunch first, or should we go to the gallery first? And I think his response was, let's go to the gallery first. And when we got there, Mr. Bearden was there with the gallery owner and no one else.
Oh, perfect.
And The
Perfect.
person that was supposed to come from the media to interview him was like an hour late for the interview. So we got to spend like a whole hour with him one-on-one, just taking us around to each individual image and showing us what he was attempting to do and to convey with the work. And that was just such a priceless opportunity. It was like, no way. It was like,
that was God.
we can't afford any of this stuff. So
That was
again,
meant to
that
be.
was, a group of them that got away. But the experience just made us know that at some point, if we ever had the opportunity to collect Romare Bearden's work, we would do it. So it was love. It was really like love at first sight,
Yeah, absolutely.
but totally serendipity.
Mhm.
Yeah, imagine if you had decided to go to lunch first.
Yeah, we did.
Right, right.
We did
Bad
think about
decision,
that.
horrible decision.
Would have totally missed him.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Which makes me wonder with things, so like keeping up with your collection, and not really sort of identifying artists that are more notable than the other, but like, how do you catalog all of the artists? Like, do you have like a list or a document of who's in your collection? And
Patrick is the keeper
What you
of the
have?
collection, and so he does a lot of that kind of thing.
Well, we have cataloged the collection, right? You know, we have photographs of all of the images and all of the factual information associated with the image. We're in the process of actually having a catalog of maybe 90 or 100 images printed. But over time, we have been able to capture all of the documentation on the individual pieces. I should also share with you, and I don't know if Jessica mentioned to you, 2 years ago, this experience has been so extraordinary that I actually wrote a book about the experiences that Judy and I have had while collecting. And I think there's a full chapter on our experiences in Chicago. There's a full chapter on the experience with Romare Bearden. And then again, just
Benny Andrews.
Benny Andrews, who became a dear friend. He's also a graduate of the School of the Art Institute, and we had a wonderful 10-year friendship with him before he passed away. So there was so many different and wonderful experiences. Again, did I say that again? There's a full chapter on our time in Chicago. There's a write-up about the experience with Miss Catlett.
We pushed our way into some events too, because as Patrick is talking, I'm remembering that when we lived in Winston-Salem, there was, I guess there was an event that involved, I guess, one of the more famous artists. And I'm trying to think of his name, but we went to the Diggs Gallery to meet him.
Jacob Lawrence.
Jacob Lawrence.
Oh,
And so I saw it in the paper.
Wow.
I saw that he was going to be there with his wife at the Diggs Gallery. I was like, no way, because it said he loved meeting with children and telling them about art and how he made art and everything else that goes along with it. But they said, so we're going to be at the Diggs Gallery on Saturday, I don't know, like 1 o'clock for an hour, but it's only for children. I was like, no way. No, we're going. And I think we were the only other adults. It was him and his wife.
Right.
Patrick and I were the only other adults. I was like, no, we're gonna go meet Jacob Lawrence.
Yeah.
So these things, I think, for us have just built on one another. I think, museums have probably found out about us partly because Patrick wrote this wonderful book about collecting art. And the word gets around. The internet is helpful that way too. And so sometimes we'll get a call from somebody that just says, hey, we'd be interested in, displaying your art? Would you be interested in working with us? And that's how it happens a lot of the time.
Yeah. We would love to hear about your travels, because we also read that you all went to Tanzania and collected a
Right
lot of
after
work
you got
there, right
married?
after you got married.
We
And
did.
also love to travel and collect a lot of work when we do
Sure.
go places to bring back to, as a reminder, like a nice memento. But I would love to hear about some of your favorite places to travel and how the artistic communities there have inspired you to want to bring something back.
Well, Patrick and I were in college together. We were in the same class, and so we spent 4 years at Boston University, and then another graduate year in Boston. And then we were like, well, what are we going to do? We'd like to stay together. What should we do? And so we decided we would get married, and we actually 2 years in a row, we applied for this program called the Harvard Africa Volunteer Project. So our goal was to land somewhere in East Africa and as a couple, and just kind of work for a year or so as volunteers. And so it's a long story, but the short story is that we did land there. And I think we were married about a week before we got on a plane and went to Africa to live.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was just an amazing, just super incredible experience, meeting the people, learning the language, just living in a different country. Tremendous experience. And there was no way you couldn't be exposed to the art, because the art was everywhere.
Was it on every corner?
On every corner, on the, just on the road. When you're driving somewhere, you'd see, a group of artisans just working and trying to sell their art. And so that was actually how, Patrick said, we started collecting immediately. That was how we were able to sort of get into the business of collecting art. And it was very inexpensive to do.
Very inexpensive.
Very inexpensive to do.
Yeah, initially, again, we lived in Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania, right on the Indian Ocean. And as soon as we got settled and started to move around the city, as Judy indicated, we just started purchasing, paintings and batik paintings and carvings. Jewelry. Almost immediately. And then over the year that we were there, one of our objectives was to purchase items for our family and friends, right? So I built this crate. I can't describe exactly how large it was, but it was a huge wooden crate, and we actually packed literally hundreds of carvings and paintings and all kinds of things in the crate. So that was the start of it in terms of that interest in collecting. When we got back to the States, however, we transitioned to collecting African American works, and again, just got captivated by some of the artists that we heard about or read about, and or we were introduced to as a result of visits to museums. We had the opportunity to visit in, I think it was 1980. We were living here in Charlotte, I believe, or it could have been Atlanta. And we visited to New York, and there was an exhibition. We were there for a Thanksgiving holiday, and there was an exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum, a 10-year retrospective of Romare Bearden's work. And Judy read about it in the paper, and my sister and brother-in-law and their children, we all decided to on a family visit to the Brooklyn Museum. And it was absolutely incredible the way in which, Bearden's, collages sort of spoke to all of us. And, again, that was my introduction to Romare Bearden. And, we collected his work we probably have more of his work than any other artist in our collection. Sometimes pieces have gotten away, we've traded for other artists and that, but Bearden remains one of our very favorite artists.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab one of the African pieces and I don't know if we'll be able to get it all on the screen, but because Tanzania was such an important experience for us, and you've asked about it, I'm going to try to grab it.
Get the Britain one too.
Oh, thank you.
She said no.
Yeah, we feel the same way. We travel to go see art shows sometimes, or when we spent a month in Morocco, we got a lot of work as well. Oh,
Oh,
wow.
that's
see that?
gorgeous.
Yeah, that is
Oh,
so
wow.
large
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 feet tall,
Wow.
and it's carved out of, I believe, a dogwood tree,
Oh,
Oh.
wow.
or it's an ebony tree.
Wow. Yeah, I just.
Yeah, and again, we purchased this, I think, in 1972 or 73.
73.
And it's one of the images that we've asked Jessica to include in the exhibition
Oh, that's so
Uptown.
great.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I
Yeah.
wish we could go.
I
and see
know.
it.
We could try to see how long it's up for.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom is in North Carolina right now, visiting my aunt and uncle. Yeah,
What part?
I think they're in Sumter, I want to say.
Sumter, okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, that's where she is. She just landed yesterday, so.
Okay, I think he's getting the Britain, even though he said he wasn't gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in Zakiyyah's artist studio at the Hyde Park Art Center in Chicago.
Yeah, we've been there too.
Yeah, I work there doing public programming as well.
Uh-huh.
so,
Wonderful. Oh,
Okay.
good.
Okay, this is Mr. Britton.
Oh,
I
I love
love
how
how-
that's framed too.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the title of it is, Garden Steps.
Wow. I also love the framing of
Yeah,
that.
the way that
too.
it's so small with the white space around it. I love
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah, I had to have that. You okay here?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's so amazing. And
So now you folks know everything about us.
yeah,
I do have a question though. Where do
Yes.
we find this book?
Pardon?
Where do we find your book? Do we just look it up online or buy it from
Well,
somewhere?
You just share your address and we'll stick one in the mail to you.
oh, that's so nice.
Thank you. We'd love to
Yeah,
read
we
it.
definitely will. Yeah.
Okay.
Online.
Yeah, currently, it's currently being sold in about 20 galleries and/or museums, but we'll get you a complimentary copy. We'll get it in the mail to you right away.
Oh,
That would be an
that's so
honor.
lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's sent.
We're
to
just
me.
really inspired by other, we're really inspired by other couples that, especially Black couples that have a collecting journey. Because I think we had referenced this before, like I've always grown up loving art. I've always loved art,
Yeah.
but never just felt like art collecting was like that accessible.
Mhm.
And so it's really important and I think really beautiful to hear the stories of other Black folks, especially couples that have been like collecting for many different years.
Yes, and collecting
Sure.
intentionally, because I feel like, especially now within the art world, with Black art sort of having this moment and movement, a lot of people are collecting not necessarily for the right reasons, or collecting to flip it on the market,
Right.
or because all of a sudden Black art is cool. But I think that, folks like us have always been interested in wanting to just preserve the legacy of the culture and really invest in the people that we care so much about and love.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know, Chicago was the first place that I could remember being where you ran into people whose families had collected art, Black people whose
Mm.
families had collected art and passed the collection down to them. And that was new. Which
Oh,
really
wow.
it was. And I thought, what a gift.
Is your son, I just have one last question. Just a family question. I'm not sure, because I'm like, I can't do the math right now. But with your son, have you passed that down to your son, like the desire and like, I guess, commitment to collecting Black art?
Let me try to answer that by saying that, again, back to Chicago, we had the extraordinary experience of meeting some of the Black faculty at the School of the Art Institute, right? And over time, after a couple of years, we created this annual art auction that we hosted at our home to raise money for the Black students, I think mostly graduate students at the School of the Art Institute. And we'd have faculty that donated work, graduates that would donate work, as well as many local Black collectors that would donate work. So we'd open our home once a year and, we might raise $10,000 or $12,000. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but sort of unrestricted funds for Black students at the School of the Art Institute. Our son happened to be in law school at the time in Chicago, and he was generally our bartender at those events. And he developed wonderful friendships with a number of the artists, enjoyed the experience of this annual event, and would also enjoy, visiting museums and galleries with us. And he's developed an interest in art. He's collected some, and there are probably a few choice pieces that his parents now have that he'll probably, acquire at some point. But he does have an interest, a strong interest in African American art.
Oh, that's great.
He's a musician, but during the time that he was in college, he made some, I think maybe lifelong friends with visual artists and started collecting a little bit of their work, as have we.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, we gotta step our game up. Start doing some-
Hey, Jessica.
Wow, how lovely.
Welcome back.
That's a perfect alarm timing. Like I couldn't have planned that better.
Good.
I just wanted to show my face to let you know that it was coming. So thank you, you all. I hope you all had a good evening and
It was fun.
Oh, this is a
Thank
wonderful,
you.
wonderful evening for sure.
Coffee to you both.
Yes.
I can see future projects, opportunities to collaborate. I think that this is just the beginning of this new relationship. And so I'm really grateful for all of your time. Ciera and Zakkiyyah, I'm going to send you guys a follow-up email with the things that I need from you so that I can pay you and honor you and do all the things. And Judy and Patrick, we've got some dates coming up on our calendar for things that we're getting ready for at the start of our opening and well into it. And so I'll be touching base with you guys soon just to make sure all of our ducks are in a row.
Right.
And Zakkiyyah and Ciera, I'm going to make sure that you guys get a formal invitation to our opening celebration. And if you can't come for the opening, it would be great just to see you at some point for the run of the show.
We were just trying to scheme to come down there for a weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. You can stay at my mom's house. She'd love to host you.
Oh, that's lovely.
We'll talk about that again, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody and let you know how
Thank you,
much-
Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica, for organizing this. And Ciera, Zakkiyyah, if you just send your mailing address, we'll get that item in the mail to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We
No,
appreciate that.
definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're ever in Charlotte, we'll let you both know.
Yes.
too.
Please do.
Wonderful.
Please do.
Yeah.
No,